And it's a pleasure to get together with Cardinal broadcaster Mike Claiborne from Claibs Online. Mike, right off the bat, let's go through some of these starting pitchers who were in action and on the mound today. First of all, Steven Matz, what do you think?
You know, I think he's one of the X factors when you look at this team. He's a left-hander. When healthy, he was effective, and we saw most of his good work coming out of the bullpen. That doesn't mean he doesn't get a chance to start, because when he did start on occasions, Frank, he wasn't that bad. So I think they're going to give him a long look, especially because of the fact, as I mentioned, he's the lone left-hander in the rotation.
Then Kyle Gibson, he had the high ERA, but if you look at those quality starts, even over the last 2 years, they're pretty good. What do you think about Kyle, and what kind of role can he play?
Well, he's what they're looking for. He's an innings eater. And, you know, considering the fact that he was with Baltimore, and you have to think about the American League ballparks, and some of those parks are not good to right-handed pitching. And I think he may have been caught up into that a little bit more than anything else. But I saw something today, Frank, that really showed me what kind of potential leader he can be on this ball club. In our clubhouse, you know, you have all the veterans basically sitting on one side, and then there's Kyle Gibson sitting with the veterans. He went over and personally introduced himself to every newcomer with regard to the rookies and the minor league pitchers. And I thought that was something special because of the fact he wanted to make sure they were inclusive as far as that clubhouse was concerned. And there have been some other little things you've seen where he's tried to fit in and find a role in being one of the leaders on this ball club.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's with Adam Wainwright with Big League Impact, and I hear they're eerily similar in terms of being human beings.
Can he sing too?
Well, some may debate whether. No, Adam's a fine singer. Okay. Next up, Miles Mikolas. Coming off a season with his highest ERA, he's making $17 million a year. You know, the most disappointed person about Miles Mikolas last year was probably Miles himself. What do you think this season?
Well, you know, it seems like he has a good year and an off year. One of the problems with Miles last year, he was in the middle of the plate too much. He is a strike thrower. I think he's going to have to start throwing more inside to establish that portion of the plate. But overall, I think Miles Mikolas physically looks the part. He's been here. He lives in Jupiter, Florida, so he's been in good shape all year. I'm looking for big things out of him because he does know how to pitch, and that's something we didn't have enough of last year in the rotation, guys who actually knew how to pitch and certainly pitch out of trouble.
Yesterday, we understand that Sonny Gray had a real animated bullpen session with his new catcher, Wilson Contreras.
That's going to be a lot of fun to watch those two work together. Sonny Gray is what you're looking for, and not just a pitcher, but as a person and certainly as a leader on this ball club. He and Wilson Contreras, and one of the things I'll say about Contreras and Ivan Herrera, these guys want to catch everybody. Anybody else who thinks they can make this team as a catcher has no chance because they want to catch every pitcher within the organization, not just on the ball club. But to see those two go back and forth yesterday, trying to build a little chemistry, if we borrow a term from hockey, I think those two guys are going to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, let's talk about the catchers. First, Herrera. Mike, he has a chance to be an everyday catcher in this league, and he really hits too.
He does hit, Frank, and he changed his batting stance last year. Hands are away from his body a little bit more. He's a lot more patient. But I'll tell you one thing. If you watch him in the Caribbean series, he really understands catching. His footwork is solid. His hands are very soft. He's able to really feel the game. And I don't know if we've seen a guy make such an improvement from one year to the other like we saw Ivan Herrera last year. And don't think he's just going to get in 40 games because Wilson Contreras is going to catch all the games. I think we're going to see a lot more of Ivan Herrera during the course of the season in multiple roles.
And then if that happens, you'll see Wilson Contreras as a DH. I mean, his bat, especially the second half of the season, was as good as any catcher in the big leagues.
He swung the bat really well. I think once he let all the noise get behind him, he started to focus on playing baseball again. And you're right, his bat was very good in the second half, and I think he's looking to carry that over. I talked to him yesterday, and he's put in a lot of work in the offseason in Venezuela, and he's looking forward to really being a more complete catcher and understanding how the Cardinals like catching the work. Obviously, with Yadi on the horizon, that's a situation he's going to learn from. And oh, by the way, we don't really expect Yadi until the latter part of spring training. He was in the Caribbean playoffs, and they're going to give him some time off to recharge. We'll see him at the latter part of spring training, according to Cardinal President John Mozeliak.
Yeah, so what do you think he can actually bring to the club? What kind of role will Yadier Molina have? His title is special assistant to the president of baseball operations. What can he do in that role?
That's a great question because we don't know. I think Yachty is probably going to be more of a mentor, making sure catchers have an understanding of what proper mechanics are. And we're going through a transition now with regard to catching where we're seeing a lot more catchers trying to catch on one knee, trying to catch that low strike. And that's all good and well. The only two guys I've ever seen that were successful with it was Tony Pena and Benito Santiago. Everybody else tries to do it, but it really hampers your ability to throw runners out. And with the game trying to emphasize base stealing a little bit more, you have to make sure you have a guy mechanically in a position where he can still catch and throw.
Nobody could ever doubt Yadier Molina's baseball acumen, and he learned it from Dave Duncan and Tony La Russa and his dad and his brothers, no doubt about it. But I sometimes wonder, because I think in the back of his mind he wants to be a manager. I think he checks a lot of boxes, but the one box he doesn't check, and I know people think, oh, that's not important, but it's dealing with the media, where a guy like Ali Marmol basically does 4 interviews before every game 162 times a year. I wonder about Yachty in that role.
Well, you make a good point. I think it's an era where managers and coaches are have to be much more accessible to the media. I'm not sure if that's all right because a lot of times it's rinse and return and with regard to their answers, but it's part of the business. And it only takes one bad night for a guy's career to go down in flames. And that's something that Yachty has not been accustomed to. I mean, Yachty has been a guy with the media locally, very cordial, very professional, but I think we can all admit he can be very moody as well. You can't be that way as a big league manager these days and expect to survive. I'm not saying it's right, but it's something that any manager who wants to be in the big leagues, if he doesn't understand that nuance of what the industry is all about, it's going to be a very difficult role for him to hold.
Final thought, what about the facility in Jupiter? We've heard for years about upgrades, and they were going to change things around, build a whole new facility. Where do we stand now with everything?
It looks exactly the way you left it last year. Nothing has changed. They had a couple of snags along the way with regard to construction, so everything's been tabled for the time being. So we're going to live with what we've been accustomed to. Hopefully sometime around 2026 is when they think this can be completed. But if you know anything about construction in Florida, it doesn't always necessarily work the way you would expect it to. But you know, Frank, the biggest story here is the uniforms. No one is happy with the new uniforms as far as the material, the lettering. The only thing that really still stands out is that Cardinal logo, but it has been the talk of the town, especially by the veterans who just think. One person said to me yesterday, he said, my kid wears better uniforms in Little League Baseball than what we're going to put on our backs in 2024.
Yeah, we heard Miles Michaelis make some comments about it. What is it? I can't believe a major league team, especially the Cardinals, would have an inferior texture to the clothes.
It's not the Cardinals. It's league-wide.
Oh.
The company who manufactures the uniforms is responsible. This isn't going on just in the Cardinal clubhouse. You can go around baseball, and there are quite a few players, especially the players who pay attention to detail, players who are proud to wear the uniform of whatever team they're on. And if you're in a big league uniform, that's good enough. But there are guys who are just saying, this is not what we signed up for. This is not even minor league material. And the block lettering on the back, it's smaller. It doesn't stand out. And when you have players who take that kind of interest in a uniform, it kind of says that they still have an interest in the game other than just the money that comes with it.
Great stuff, Mike. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, Frank, take care.